Asanteni sana kwa kuwa pamoja nasi kwenye uhusiano wa imani.
Obrigado por sintonizar a Conexão da Fé.
Gracias por sintonizarnos en la conexión de fe.
Thank you for tuning in to Faith Connection, where we help you connect to God.
Hi, I'm Pastor Steve Hobbins from the Lewis Avenue Baptist Church in Temperance, Michigan. I want to share with you some lessons today from one of my favorite Bible stories in Luke chapter 5. We'll look at it in just a moment, but it deals with a concept that I want to share with you first, and then I'll show it to you in the scripture here in the story that I've told you about, talking about the life of Peter and what's going on in Peter's life. And the Lord asks them to follow, he and his friends, his other fishermen. And when someone asks you to follow, you want to know that they know what they're talking about. You know, it's been popular in this day and age to try to shorten things. For instance, you can now, there's a company that has taken hour-long television programs and tried to cut everything out and narrow it down. They're skipping from one thought to another. In about 6 minutes, you can watch it. And I guess that's what they want to do to make it more convenient. And the reason I say that is because that's how some people view following Christ. They're doing everything they can, what we would call discipleship. They're doing everything they can to make following Christ as convenient as possible, to trim down an hour's worth of following Christ into just 6 minutes, if you will. And but that's not at all what Christ had in mind when he said to follow him. And we're going to see in this passage where he says to follow him, and then learn some lessons of what it means when God asks us, when Christ asks us to follow him. What exactly does he mean? How does he lead us to do that? Well, let's take a look here in Luke chapter 5, and we'll look at verse 1. We'll read 11 verses here. It says, "And it came to pass that as the people pressed upon him to hear the word of God, he stood by the lake of Gennesaret, and saw two ships standing by the lake. But the fishermen were gone out of them, and were washing their nets. And he entered into one of the ships, which was Simon's," that's Peter, "and prayed him that he would thrust out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the people out of the ship." Jesus there taught the people in the ship, and he used the water there as a natural sounding board. Water is a very good conductor of sound, and so he's got the water there, using it a little bit like a microphone system of that day, if you will. Then verse 4, it says, "Now when he had left speaking, he said unto Simon, Launch out into the deep, and let down your nets for a draught. And Simon answering said unto him, Master, we have toiled all the night, and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word I will let down the net. And when they had done this, they enclosed a great multitude of fishes, and their net brake. And they beckoned unto their partners which were in the other ship, that they should come and help them. And they came and filled both the ships, so that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. For he was astonished, and all that were with him, the other disciples there, at the draught of the fishes which they had taken. And so was also James and John, the sons of Zebedee. These were the other men fishing with him, which were partners with Simon. And Jesus said unto Simon, Fear not, from henceforth thou shalt catch men. And now it brings us down to verse 11, the text verse of what I'm talking about. And when they had brought their ships to land, they forsook all and followed him. What does it mean to follow Christ? When God asks us to follow him, what does he have in mind? What is his plan? Well, we're going to look at this passage again, go through it verse by verse here, and see what it involves. You see, when in this passage we get a better idea of what it is to follow Christ, we always find these ingredients, if you will, these steps. This is how Christ leads us to follow him. So what are the steps? Well, first of all, I want you to notice what I call preparation. Before he ever asks us to follow him, he first proves himself to us ahead of time. That's the preparation. Notice it in verse first of all, I want to go to John 2 and show you the preparation. In John 2, verse 2, the reason I skipped to this chapter from Luke chapter 5, it says, is because this is the first miracle that Jesus did. In John 2, verse 2, it says, and both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. They had been with Jesus before. They had followed him somewhat before. Not left all and followed him. That hadn't happened. This verse, John 2:2 that we just looked at, happened before Luke chapter 5, where they forsook all and followed him. So why did we go there? Because the point is preparation. He is preparing them. This is the miracle where he turned the water into wine there at the wedding of Cana of Galilee in John chapter 2. He's laying a foundation. Now we go back to Luke chapter 5, to this passage, and I want you to notice the verses, how he led in preparation. In verse 4, we'll pick it up. It says, now when he had left speaking, he's done talking to the people, he said unto Simon, launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a draught. And Simon answering said unto him, Master, we have toiled all the night and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word, I will let down the net. And when they had done this, they enclosed a great multitude of fishes, and their net brake. And they beckoned unto their partners which were in the other ship that they should come and help them. And they came and filled both the ships so that they began to sink. Now, this idea of preparation here, these boats beginning to sink. Well, that doesn't sound to me like it's preparation. It sounds like they jumped right in. No, it's several verses later. It's after this whole incident that they are willing to follow him. They're willing to forsake all and followed him. But they're willing because he prepared them. He prepared them by them starting to follow him in John. And in this passage where he does a miracle to show them and who he is and what he's doing. And he was preparing them. Before God ever asks us to follow him, you can count on it. You can understand this is going to be true. He's willing to prepare us. He prepares us by showing us who he is. In fact, that's one reason why he's given us his word, to prepare us. So we see wherever God asks us to follow, we see the step, the ingredient, if you will, of preparation. Next, I want you to notice the word I would use is limitation. You see, we can limit him when we try to make him fit our abilities. If I tried to get God to fit my abilities, boy, I have really limited God. Why? Because my abilities are limited. Now let's look at this passage and we'll see how they limited God. And it says in verse 4, notice the word, launch out into the deep and let down your nets. Now notice what Peter, the fisherman, the expert, did. Verse 5, and Simon answering said unto him, Master, we have toiled all the night and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word, I will let down the net. Did you see that? Verse 4, nets. Verse 5, net. Peter is looking at that, and you understand, Jesus is a carpenter. And Peter thinks, yeah, I know he's the master, I know he's the teacher, but I'm the fisherman. This is what I do. This is my expertise. And on top of that, I've been up all night, and I've been working all night while I've been up, and I just don't have the energy. So all right, but he is the master, so I'll humor him. I'll let down a net. You see, Peter thought he was doing Jesus a favor. Maybe he was showing him some respect by doing this. But what Peter was ultimately doing was showing that a matter of limitation. God, I know what I can do. And so I'm going to shrink you down to the lens of what I can see. I'm going to shrink your abilities down to what I can do. What he didn't know is God is not limited by our abilities, but we can limit God when we don't let him, when we refuse, when we only will do a little of what he asks us to do. He asks us to follow him. And when he asks us to follow him, there's always preparation. He gets us ready, but there's always limitation. We can limit him if we force him, if we expect him to only do what we can do. But we don't have to limit God. We can, and that's what Jesus is teaching them. That's more of the preparation. He's showing, I am not limited by your ability. I'll let down a net. And we know what happened. The net overflowed. They had to call in other boats, the friends, to help them, and their boats began to sink. They took so much. See, God is not limited, but we limit him when we view him with the wrong lens, when we think he can only do small things. And God shows us how wrong we are. He's preparing us. Then I want you to notice this. The next word I would use is amplification. He amplifies. See, he knows how to use little faith. God can use little faith. You know why God can use little faith? Because God has the ability to scale what we give him. He has the ability to multiply what we give him. I'm glad that what God does not have to be limited by our faith. Let me show you Peter's little faith here. And we saw it here moments ago. We've toiled all the night and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word, I will let down the net. Now, does that sound like great faith to you? I don't think that's great faith. I think that's very little faith. Nevertheless, okay, Jesus, I'll let down a net. But yet what happened? Jesus still performed a miracle. See, Jesus, in our life, when he asks us to follow him, he is still capable of doing miracles because he can take the little faith that we have and multiply it. He said if we have faith as a grain of mustard seed, boy, that's the smallest of seeds. Yet it's not the seed. It's his ability. He amplifies it. It's not my level of faith. He can take the smallest faith and multiply it because I am not the factor. Remember, he's not limited by us. He is the factor. He is the one. So our faith is in him. The amplification, he knows how to use little faith, and it is a good thing that he does. Next, I want you to notice another ingredient. We've already said that we see preparation. He gets us ready. Limitation. We limit him by our lack of faith, but he can do it anyway, and he's trying to get us to learn beyond that. And we see amplification, which I just described. But notice also the word desperation. What happened to the boats? What happened when Jesus began to work? Well, we see it in verse 7. It says, and they beckoned unto their partners which were in the other ship that they should come and help them. And they came and filled both the ships so that they began to sink. What do you think these fishermen thought? When Jesus, it says in verse 8, when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. He lets our sinking talk to us. The boat starts sinking. Imagine these fishermen as they're reeling in the fish, as the boat, in the one net that they let down, they get other boats to come and help them, and the boats start sinking. Do you think they're desperate? How bad would that look at the fishermen when Peter said, okay, I'm the fisherman. I know what I'm doing. Nevertheless, to humor you, I've toiled all night, but I'll let down a net. And now the boats start sinking. Do you think that would make you desperate? If you think, well, it might not make me desperate. I'm a good swimmer. Are you a good boat builder? Think about how valuable these boats were. And the boats are starting to sink. And not only that, there's an audience. He just got done talking to people. They're watching this go on, and Jesus is doing this. Their boats are sinking. My point is this. When God asks us to follow him and we're reluctant, he hadn't asked him yet. That's at the end of the passage. When we're reluctant, you know what he does? He lets us get in a desperate situation. And our desperation starts talking to us. After the boat began to sink, we saw it in verse 8. That's when he cried to the Lord. That's when he said, when Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. Peter realized his condition. Why? Was because Jesus talked to him? No, because his own sense of desperation began to talk to him, and Peter realized his lack of faith. He realized his shame, and he thought, man, he told me to let down one net, and he is sinking the boats. His desperation began to sink. You may find yourself in a desperate position right now. I guess I'm asking you, could it be that the Lord has put you in that situation so that your desperation will cause you to cry out to him like Peter did? Will cause you to be willing to follow him? It could be that the Lord has put that situation in your life or allowed you to go through it so that you will see your desperation, see your need, and call on him. Now, he doesn't leave us there. It doesn't end with desperation. I want you to notice next, number 5, realization. He lets us realize our inability. When Peter begins to sink, when he sees this, when he starts going down, desperation, you know what else happens? Why did he say to the Lord, I'm sinful? Because he had a realization of what his abilities were and realized Jesus far exceeds that. We see it verse 8 when he's sinking, depart from me for I am a sinful man, O Lord. This is a realization. He realized two things. He realized his inability and Jesus' ability. He realized how sinful he was and how wonderful God is. This is a realization. God lets, it says, for he was astonished in verse 9, and all that were with him at the draught of the fishes which they had taken. Amazing. And so was also James and John, the sons of Zebedee, which were partners with Simon. All of these men had the same realization. They realized, on my own, I can't do it. That's the realization. That's the, I am incapable. Have you ever come to that realization yet? The sense of desperation I talked about a moment ago, realizing that you're sinking and cried out to the Lord? You know why we do that? Because desperation causes a realization. And we realize, boy, I've been depending on my own ability, on my own flesh. And my own flesh fails me. He never fails us. But that is the realization. We have to realize our inability. Do you know why people won't accept Jesus Christ as their Savior? Well, because they haven't had a sense of desperation. They don't think they need it, and that's the realization. They don't realize their inability. They don't realize their inability to save themselves. I have a question for you. There are many in the world that believe you can be saved by living a good life, by works. My question is this: if you can be saved by good works, whether yours measure up or not, if a person can be saved by good works, then why did Jesus die? He had no reason to die if you can be saved by good works. No, there's a realization of our inability to save ourselves. A man came to Jesus and said, good master, what good thing that may I do that I may have eternal life? And he said, keep the law, keep the commandments. Is that how you get saved? No. That is how you come to this point. That is how you come to the realization. I can't keep the law. Exactly. We need something more. We need Jesus Christ. So they have a realization. They realize when he asks them to follow them in a few minutes, in a few verses, that they're unable. They're unable to do things on their own, and so they have a trust for him. So we come back to this realization, and now we see an illustration. All right? The illustration he uses is found here in verse 10. It says, and Jesus said unto Simon, notice the next two words, fear not. From henceforth thou shalt catch men. Why would he say fear not to Simon? He said fear not to him because his boat was sinking. And he said, depart from me, I'm sinful. And he said, fear not. In other words, this is an illustration of what he can do with us, of what he wants to do. He calms our fears. Now, that doesn't mean we never have a spirit of fear. A spirit of fear doesn't come from the Lord. He's not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. I understand that we will still have fear in our lives, and God allows us to have a healthy fear. If a dog is chasing you and would like to make you the next Scooby snack, would like to make you the next dog chew, well, there's a fear. We run. And that may always not be the wisest thing, but we understand that fear that keeps us alive. But I'm talking about in our spirit, a fearful spirit. He's not given us that spirit. He tells Peter, and he said this a lot to the disciples, to the followers of his day, fear not. That's an illustration. He is able to calm our fears. He is able to, he can do so much with our life that it's scary. That's the fear not. My boat's sinking. Look at what you're able to do. Fear not. That's just an illustration of what I can do. I can do so much that it can scare you. Boy, the Lord has allowed me to do some things for him, and I praise the Lord for it and give him the glory. But I want you to understand, there's times he's done some things that are scary. I don't mean scary as in I'm afraid for my life. I mean scary as in I'm in awe of him. Wow. They had already followed him once back in John 2, remember. Now here, he's doing a miracle. They saw him turn the water into wine. Now he's doing this miracle, and he falls down. I'm sinful. How could I do this? And he's saying, hey, it's just another illustration of what I'm able to do. Fear not. So we see this illustration. He can do so much that it's scary. And now we move on to destination. Does he tell us specifically where we're going? No. He merely gives us a glimpse of where he wants to take us. But we saw that there in verse 10, from henceforth thou shalt catch men. Whoa. These are fishermen. Do they understand it? Well, they understand the reference. When he says, from henceforth thou shalt catch men, does he mean that they're going to, like fish, cast a line out there? Well, no, not like that. But the idea is he's giving them an idea of this destination of we are going to reach men. It's an illustration of it, you understand. But he didn't specifically tell them everywhere he's going to take them. I don't mean by everywhere. I don't mean every single destination. They did not know what's coming, but he gave them a glimpse. When we begin to follow God, this is you know what this is called? This is faith. If God would tell us, all right, you're following me, here's where I'm going to take you. You're following Jesus, here's where I'm going to take you. Well, that would help, but he doesn't always do that. But he does show us a glimpse. You just keep following me, and this is the kind of thing you're going to see. Did they see everything? No, but they saw this, and it opened their eyes. Their boat began to sink. Peter realized his own sinfulness. And when we get a good view of Christ, when we get our eyes on Christ and what he can do, boy, it really gives us a good view of us. You know, much of this world, the humanistic philosophy, meditation, and things like this, they're in the pursuit of knowing self. I want to know self. Do you know the only way to truly know yourself is to know God? When people get a view of who Christ is, they see themselves for who they are. Think about it. Moses saw God in the burning bush. And he's taking his shoes off. That scared him. Isaiah, when he got a glimpse of God's glory, what did he say? Woe is me, for I am undone. I'm a sinful man. He realized how sinful he was. And here, when Peter sees this, he realizes how sinful he is and says, depart, I'm a sinful man. You know what the Lord is doing here? The Lord is showing us a glimpse of this destination where he wants to take us, and he can't take us there if we won't realize our inability. So this destination, he gives us a glimpse. He doesn't always specify. That's a life of faith. We have to trust him. But then we come to this thought of estimation. We will never follow Christ until we value him beyond our dreams, or the word esteem. We have to esteem him greater value than our dreams. Our dreams are important to us. But until we value him above our dreams, we're not willing to forsake our dreams. We want to hang on to it. These were fishermen. Look what the verse says. When they had brought their ships to land, they forsook all and followed him. Why were they now willing to forsake all and follow him? Why were they willing to turn their back on this fishing business, on these boats? Why were they willing to do that? Because they got to the point where they valued Christ more than they valued their boats, than their business. You know, until we get to that estimation of who Christ is and value him above our dreams, we're not willing to turn our back on our dreams. We hang on to our dreams. We want to follow Christ and our dreams. We think we can handle that, but we've got the wrong estimation. And the Lord is trying to teach them, you have to have the right estimation. It's not that we devalue everything else, it's that we value him. And the value of him makes us realize everything else in perspective, that my dreams weren't worth following. He is worth following. What a wonderful thought. I want to show you another one here. The word resignation, to resign. Christ won't transform us until we are willing to follow, until we resign our own will, until we say, okay, I'll follow you. Notice in Matthew chapter 4, another account, verse 19, and he saith unto them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. He can't do that. He can't make us fishers of men until we're willing to follow him. In Luke, we saw they forsook all and followed him. Here we see in Matthew, follow me. We see it in Mark chapter 1, in Mark's account of the story. And Jesus said unto them, come ye after me, and I will make you to become fishers of men. Before they can become fishers of men, we have to have this principle of resignation. Christ won't transform us until we are willing to follow him. Follow me, and I will make you. But not until. That brings us to another one. Relation. I love this one. The reason I love this one is because if he asks me to do it on my own, I'm in trouble. But he doesn't expect us to do it alone. Notice the last verse. By the way, the last word in each of the passages, in Matthew's account, Mark's account, and the one we're looking at in Luke. See the word? And when they had brought their ships to land, they forsook all and followed. It doesn't stop there. It says followed him. He doesn't ask us to do it alone. He asks us to have a relationship with him, to come with him. It's one thing if I ask somebody to go do something for me, but that's not what he does. He says, come with me. I get Christ as part of it. What a wonderful treasure to know that the love of my life, Jesus Christ, says, I want you to come with me. No wonder they're willing to follow. They didn't forsake all and follow. They forsook all and followed him. And they spent the next 3 years learning who he is and how he can transform their lives. It's a relation. If you miss the relation, you've missed it. And then that brings us down to this last point. Boy, it's amazing. I call this transformation. If he asks us to follow him, transformation. Don't expect things to stay the same. Don't expect the status quo. Don't expect things to stay the way they are. Look what he says. And going back to Matthew, and he saith unto them, follow me, and what? I will make you fishers of men. By the way, there it is, follow me. It's a relation. And I will make you. It's transformation. He transforms our lives. We see it also in Mark's account, chapter 1, verse 17. And Jesus said unto them, come ye after me. There's the relation. And I will make you to become fishers of men. That's the transformation. If you follow Christ, don't expect things to stay the same. One of my favorite passages, we get back down here to Luke chapter 5, we get to verse 11, where Jesus says, where it says about them that they're willing to leave all and follow. They forsook all. They followed him. But they didn't get to that point without these steps, without going right through them. Preparation. He got them ready. Limitation. They had to see that they could not do it on their own, that they were limited. The amplification. He can take the little bit that we do offer him and do something with it. The little boy that gave Jesus his lunch, Jesus could have fed the crowd with he didn't need the boy's 5 loaves and the fish that he gave. No, he didn't need that, but he used what we have. He does that with us. He's able to amplify what we give him, but he wants us to give him all of us. A desperation. We have to get to this point where we realize we need him. He lets us sink. We see realization. We realize our inability. We realize our condition without him. We get to the point of illustration. He said, fear not. It's what I can do is it's beyond your imagination. It's scary. We see destination. He shows us where we're going, but not specifically. He gives us a glimpse of where we're going. Estimation. We are not willing to follow him until we esteem him greater than our dreams. We see resignation. We have to be willing to follow, or he can't take us there. We see relation. He doesn't ask us to come alone. He wants us to come as part of him. And when we do, we get down to transformation. He can do things with our life you could never imagine.
Thank you for tuning in to Faith Connection, where we help you connect to God.